or stop with the final issue, which is around the PO box and cohabitation issue. And Dr. Ryan, you know, this is, you are an asset manager, you have been a regulator. You know, obviously you don't live in a PO box. That's a small place to live. And when you receive an, you know, mail or anything like that, you know, how do you verify a PO box address or a residential address, right? Or and how does your, for example, if the lease is in your name or the ownership is in your name, how does your wife go ahead and open a crypto account that Jesse's Chainalysis will monitor?
Well, Jehanzeb, I think this is where we get to the thin line between technology and human intervention. Technology should be a facilitator, but should not replace the human presence and the human intervention with regards to these subjects. KYC and the elements of KYC are not, for me, quantitative elements. They're more subjective elements, qualitative, and this requires a human being going through them. And this is where time comes as a negative element into all of this. So let's set aside PO Box a little bit on the side. We've had a case. We've had a client providing everything perfect in his KYC, electricity bill, etc., etc., etc. And then it turns out that the utility bill, and it was discovered by a very young person in our team, just tech savvy, knows about Photoshop, that this electricity bill has been tampered with. The actual date has been changed because the requirement is at least 3 months. It should be not older than 3 months. The date was tampered with. It is the client's residential address. It is true. Simply the client didn't have the time to get the utility bill that satisfies it. So it was discovered that the utility bill that he provided was longer than 3 months. So it was a human being who discovered it. So where does technology versus human intervention intervene? I didn't see it. The senior persons in the team didn't see it. The compliance team didn't see it. It was a very junior person who saw it, okay?
Right.
We will have accidents. We should accept that. And this is why the risk-based approach is the way forward, okay? We will not be able to check absolutely everything, make sure everything is tip-top. We should really accept that there will be cracks. Things will slip through the cracks. We should accept that accidents will happen. And this is where the regulator also has to be pragmatic. Again, this is a subject very dear to my heart. And fundamentally, when I was on the other side of the fence as a regulator, in my opinion, a regulator should not be proactive. When a regulator is proactive, the industry stops working. A regulator should be reactive. The industry should evolve. The industry should try to self-adjust and try to do the right thing. And I align with you, James. The industry should be ahead of the curve, ahead of the regulator, and the regulator intervenes as a standard setter to set the standards according to how the industry has developed. So we should do it this way with PO Box. We should do it that way with utility bills. I don't believe in this. It should be really more granular than that. Than just if you have a PO Box, that's it. You're bad. Okay.
Right.
It's really a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I would want to add a comment here, right? So we have seen and some of the challenges and how the regulators have viewed this, particularly the cohabitation challenge, right? In the Middle East, you know, three friends living in an apartment who are all doing reasonably well, but they share an accommodation, and they are millennials, and you know, they want to open an account with Revolt, and then one account with BitOasis, another account with Binance or something like that. What we have seen is that you know, there is requirements to identify who has the lease under whose name, you know, what lease is under whose name, and what's your connection with that person. So so we have seen cohabitation letters signed by the applicant and the person who has a lease in their name, and the ID of the person who has the lease. provided at least to have some evidential documentation there that connects the parties. Now, again, going back to the same point about KYC, when you go to a bank and take your passport, and the bank sort of looks at your passport, and you take the utility bill, that looks at the utility bill, and they say, okay, fine, I'm happy you are the person in the passport picture. Actually, it's worse, if you ask me, than the digital solution, because a computer can identify a fake much better than a human being looking at a fake passport. So that's one. And two, again, the address, how do you verify the address? I have never opened a bank account where the banker has come to my house and verified that I live in that particular place, right? So there's evidential. So the view there is that a comparable approach has to be taken, and probably a more advanced approach, to your point, Dr. Ann, it needs to be taken by the regulators. But it is again to be seen, at least in the Middle East. The market is evolving. A lot of fintechs are coming in. The focus right now is on building business right now and dealing with problems later. As Stuart, you said earlier, and James as well, that the time to build infrastructure is at the start, not after the fact, right? Because that's when you're really trying to chase your tail. So a lot of the challenges are going to come. We'll see some really awesome stories. We'll see some really not so good stories. But I think that's where the right mindset comes in, and addressing the challenges. And I don't know any regulator, and this is to the benefit of the regulators in the region or across the globe, that will be comfortable in guiding an applicant or their regulated entity on what to do. That is just not possible for a regulator to provide. They can share their thoughts, but the moment a regulator says that you should do it this way, if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to the regulator saying, oh, by the way, you told me that I should do it this way, this is not working. Or you will, the firms will tell other firms that that's what the regulator has told us, that we should do that. And that has inherent problems in it. The regulatory sort of issues are kind of complex as well, but there's a fine balance that needs to be attained in that respect, right? So an open discussion. We have seen regulators who are a little bit too conservative in terms of not sharing their views, not providing advice or telling people what to do, but sharing their views on how they see things. I think particularly with the fintechs or the new companies, that will definitely be the case. And it will also be the case with some of the older, larger institutions, because they're struggling. The transition is happening from a more manual to a more digital world. And that's why you see, the account opening process, I would say, in the Middle East is for lack of a better phrase, horrendous. It takes forever to open an account, whatever the reason may be, right? And that is, to James' point, adding a significant down sort of turn to the GDP growth, I guess. The longer it takes, if you miss a month of business because you can't open an account, and if you're going to do $1 million of business, you can just do the math across 1 million businesses not being able to do business for a month, and what that impact, how that impacts the GDP. So with that, I think we have hopefully discussed the themes